Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. This is part 2 of almost everything you need to know about Hanna Sandvig and her fairy tale romances. If you haven't watched part 1, go ahead and do that because this video is not really going to make sense, or a lot of sense really, if you don't know anything about the series or the author. So go and watch part 1, and also while you're at it, go ahead and watch I have a bunch of reading videos that I did of her books where I read you like an excerpt of pretty much like all of her books I've done at this point. So yeah, kind of familiarize yourself at least with them, or, obviously again, watch part 1. So yeah. And then I also have a kind of an in-between video that I made and posted a little bit ago, and it's called part 1.5. It doesn't have the same title as these videos, but I wanted to kind of make like a separate video about it because I wasn't really sure like when to fit it in, and part 1 was already a long video, and I'm assuming that this one's going to be a long video, so I did like a 1.5 part basically, so an in-betweener that showed off like kind of all of the swag that I have gotten from Hanna Sandvig. It's all the swag and merch and stuff that she's made for her series so far. And yeah, so that part I think I would say could be watched anytime, but the video that you definitely need to see first is part 1. So anyway, so yeah, and then I'll also be leaving links down below for Hanna, her website, her Instagram, like stuff like that. So anyway, without further ado, let's dive into part 2. I'm so excited about this because this is the part, I forgot to mention this in part 1, but this is the part where I will actually be answering questions that Hanna herself gave. So I had asked a question like in a couple of videos before this, and even in like the post section on YouTube, I had asked like if anybody had any questions for Hanna, and I had messaged her because I've had correspondence with her like every now and then, just kind of casually and stuff like that. And I had asked her like, is it okay if you answer some questions that people on YouTube may have? And I only got one question from a viewer, which thank you, Jamie. And yeah, so I only got one question. So I ended up sending her one or two questions that I myself had. And then a friend of mine, Alyssa, hi Alyssa, she had a couple of questions as well. And so I just forwarded those ahead to Hanna. And so I will be answering those questions in this video. It's just gonna be a little bit later, but you're gonna wanna see all of this beforehand first. So I need my structure. This is what I did with part 1. I'm kind of taking a page out of the Office Ladies podcast, which, if you know that podcast, amazing. If you don't, what are you waiting for? Even if you are not a fan of The Office, get into The Office. The Office is amazing, and I love hearing their podcast. But I kind of stole a little bit of their structure where they do what's called fast facts. Also, if you don't see me looking at the camera, it's because I am on my computer because I have notes, and it's a lot more easier for me to read off my notes than just try to have everything from memory. So I'll try to look at the camera, but no promises. So anyway, I have 3 fun fast facts today, like I did in part 1. So fast fact number 1, there is an animatic of the glass gate. Now, if you don't know what an animatic is, it's something that I think a lot of like fans of like different like movies and TV shows, there are people who are animators, or they're like up and coming animators. There's like a whole part of that on YouTube, by the way. But animatics are like, the best way I know how to describe it is like it's the in-between. It's like not a finished animation, but it's like if you watched the behind the scenes of your favorite movie, for example, or you watched a deleted scene from, say, like Beauty and the Beast or another Disney movie, usually those deleted scenes are not completely animated. They're kind of like broken up. Like, so sometimes there's a few seconds of a scene that has been colored in already and it actually looks normal, and then it'll switch to like something that looks like the storyboards, but it's very jerky movements. That's kind of what an animatic is it's meant to look like a half finished animated scene. And I've seen so many people do like music videos with this. They've done scenes from books or movies. It's even vines. People have like taken the sound from a vine and like put it over like an animatic of like some characters. It's amazing. This is like an insane community on YouTube that's like, I wish I knew how to do animatics because that is really cool, but I'm not an animator. But anyway, so there was this amazing young lady. I think she is a friend of Hanna, and she did, let me see if I can actually find my notes on this. But yeah, so Hannah's friend, her name's Mar. She did a 6-minute animatic from a scene from, of a scene from The Glass Gate, which is the Cinderella retelling. And she did a scene from chapter, it's like early in the book, from what I understand. Yeah, it's like pretty early. It's like within the first few chapters, I believe. Yes. Oh yeah, so it was like chapter 7 and 8, I believe, is where that is from. And I'm actually going to leave, I'm going to actually leave the link to that animatic in the description down below so you can go and watch that. There's also like, I think it was like a 25-30 minute video that Hanna did with the animator. And it was like a interview kind of chat. I haven't watched it yet at the time of filming, but maybe I'll watch it before this video uploads. And, you know, but it just so you know, it's also on Mar's channel. So like if you watch the animatic, you can go to her channel and scroll down and you'll find that video. So yeah, it's really fun. It's super funny to watch. It's like getting to see like, you know, a small little like slightly unfinished piece of like the Glass Gate, and honestly it makes me wish that it was a full-length animated film. The voice actors are pretty funny in it that she got. But yeah, it's just like a cute short little scene, and yeah, it's amazing. And yeah, so that's fast fact number 1, that there is that. Hopefully maybe she'll make more animatics of the other books, or maybe she'll eventually do like a full, I don't know if she'd be able to do a full movie of it, but I would still pay to see that. Fast fact number 2. So also a lot of these notes that I have that I'm going to be telling you guys are straight from Hanna's newsletters. She gave me permission to kind of mine through all of her newsletters and kind of give like just fun info. And I feel like this might actually just help people kind of catch up if they're like interested in her books and they're like, yeah, I kind of want to sign up for like her newsletter. She is doing more stuff on Patreon. She doesn't really send out as regular of a newsletter anymore. It's mostly just all on Patreon. But I feel like this will also help people, you know, get started, get caught up. So fast fact number 2, straight from the newsletter vault, is Hanna's inspirations for The Frost Gate. And The Frost Gate, just to remind you guys, is her latest book, came out last January, and it is a retelling of Snow White. So again, I'm just going to remind you guys, if you have not watched part 1, you're going to need to. So anyway, this is straight up from her newsletter. Her inspiration. So from her words herself, I'm going to read her inspiration for The Frost Gate. I always say that the way I retell fairy tales is that I take a bit of the original, a dash of Disney, the vibes I associate with the story, some Celtic lore. That's very important because she very much uses like the whole basis of the world of fairy is ingrained in Celtic lore. And a whole lot of things I love and or think are funny. So here's a breakdown for The Frost Gate. So this is specifically what inspired her for this. The Grimm's fairy tale. Most of what you think when you think of Snow White is the original German fairy tale, the bones of the story. Something the original has that didn't make it into Disney's version is the 3 times the evil queen tries to kill Snow White. This actually, yeah. First, it was a bodice that was laced too tight. Then a poisoned comb, like something that you'd like comb your hair with. And then the infamous apple. As much as I did my best to keep my retelling cozy, I did include all 3. poor Nev better watch out. And Nev is the name of the Snow White character. So yeah, I loved how she, just a quick aside, I really loved how she ingrained, the way that she interconnected, like, the different ways the queen tries to, like, kill Snow White or, like, make her incapacitated. I love how she was able to weave in the stuff from the original tale. Really cool. Her next section is Disney. Like the original, Disney's version has the evil stepmother, magic mirror, 7 dwarves, poison apple, glass coffin, and a huntsman who spares the princess's life. I included all these elements in my story too. If you've already read my other books, you've met Moriath, our evil queen. She's the unseelie queen, and Nev's stepmother, and you know that magic mirrors are a favorite tool of hers. Apples are an obsession for our baker Nev. She has this one memory of her birth mother, an apple pie. No matter how many apples she tries, she can't seem to get her pies to taste the same. Maybe the apple she's looking for is from further away than she thinks. Maybe. 7 dwarves felt like a lot, honestly. So while I did keep dwarves as an important plot element, yes, that she does include dwarves, but not in the way you think. We instead have 7 chickens. If you watch part 1, you'll have known about the chickens. Each chicken has the personality of one of the Disney dwarves, so see if you can guess who's who when you read. Joke's on me though, 7 chickens is also a lot. Oh, and that cottage in the woods, how could I write a cozy little retelling and not have the cottage? Oh yeah, the cottage was so cute. Her next section on Inspo was the vibes, and this is really, really cool too. I've always loved fan art of Snow White in a pinup inspired style with tattoos. And when I say when she says pinup, she's not meaning like, like completely like dirty or anything. Cause like, I feel like pinup girls is like a interesting style where like it can look really, really clean or it can look kind of raunchy. And she's not talking about the raunchy kind. She's looking at just like the pinup girl kind of like aesthetic, and she'll explain it. Of course, when I try to find some to show you, I can't find any credit or any that credit the artist, but just trust me, it's a whole thing. I think it's her Disney hairstyle that does it. It's very true. So my Snow White had to be a lover of vintage dresses with her black curls tied up with a red bandana, curvy, and of course, that full sleeve of tattoos. I don't have any tattoos myself, but I do think they're a lot of fun to draw, and that naturally led to a whole rune tattoo magic system for this book. I guess you could actually call this section things Hanna put in the book because she wanted to draw them. There's a magic crown on that list too, but I don't want to give too much away. That is true. I think like a lot of the things that she adds in her books is because she wants to draw them. It's like just stuff that she wants to draw. And honestly, I think that that's like an amazing, like another amazing outlet for an artist. But yeah, so like the Snow White in this story, she has like a full sleeve of tattoos and it's really cool looking. It's like apple blossoms and there's like a white owl and like the wing kind of goes across her collarbone and stuff like that, and she wears like cute like I think like one of the dress actually is like a red with like white polka dots like dress, and she always like has her hair tied up. It's super cute and adorable. I don't know if you guys would be able to see this, but like yeah, so like she has like the sleeve and everything. And then this dress is something that's more like from Faerie, so it's not like her vintage dress, but yeah, she's got like, yeah. It's super cute though. I love how Hanna designed her. I think she's probably one of the best, most intricately designed characters. And then I'm sure that there's a lot of people watching, or maybe not a lot of people, I don't know. But I'm sure that there's some people watching who are like, well, rune tattoo magic, what's that? Like, I'm sure that, because I know that Hanna did have a worry that some people would be like, ooh, I don't know how I feel about that and everything. Like any magic and stuff that she includes in her books, it's like she doesn't like, she's a Christian and like she is like, has been like pretty careful around that kind of stuff. And like, I never, and being a Christian myself, like I never got any alarm bells off because like, first of all, I know that it's fantasy, it's not real. And like, sometimes there are stories where I've read where I'm like, little check in my spirit about that, but I never got any of that with her, like any of the magic systems that she introduced in her books. But then again, something that I have also understood, and I'm sure that hopefully fellow Christians watching this will understand that sometimes people have different convictions than others. So it all depends on how you feel about it. Yeah, because like, not to get too off topic, but I know that there are some people who have certain convictions about watching or reading Harry Potter, and sometimes even Lord of the Rings. I've even heard certain Christians be like, I don't know about Lord of the Rings, and I'm like, it was literally written by a Christian author. But it all depends on your convictions. So to each his or her own, basically. So anyway, back on track to, we're still on fast fact number 2. So anyway, Hannah's inspiration for the Frostgate. Now we get to the lore, and she's going to be talking about the Celtic inspirations. While my stories all take place in Tir na Nog, the Celtic version of Faerie, dwarves are not precisely Celtic. They are, in fact, Norse. An excellent excuse to go down a rabbit hole about Alfheimr. I don't know how to pronounce Norse things. I'm sorry. It's the Norse land of the elves. What are they doing in the Unseelie Kingdom? You'll find out. You'll also meet a variety of new Celtic mythological beasties and fairies, along with some old favorites. I've been working hard to keep the glossary on my website updated with them all. Oh gosh, yeah, it's a lot. And then, last but not least, her own favorite things that she included. I suppose I can't really take credit for making my love interest the huntsman instead of the prince. I'm certainly not the first, but I never liked how the prince just swooped in at the end of the story, especially in the original, which is creepier than the Disney version. Yeah, the original is like, I will say it's a little weird. What about that huntsman that saved her life? That's way more interesting. And surely I'm not the only one who thought Kristen Stewart should have married Chris Hemsworth in Snow White and the Huntsman. I never actually watched that movie because it was just kind of seemed like dark and gritty, but I don't know, maybe I'll give it a chance. I don't know, let me know in the comments below, should I? I also threw in a lot, in parentheses, of baking, the aforementioned chickens for emotional support, unicorns of the medieval variety, a very dignified owl. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention in my side character section of the video, there's a cute little owl named Fluffy. It's adorable. Steampunk gym magic for the dwarves. Oh, that's right, that was really cool. A lot of dragons, a magic bond, and a hot guy who wears a weapon harness. I can't be alone in wanting that. Nev is also my first heroine to wield a sword, which was exceptionally fun to write. Oh, and it's a grumpy sunshine romance, which is my favorite trope. Eee! She wrote that. I'm so excited for you to read it. Aw, that is like so adorable. But yeah, I do like the idea of like, instead of it being like the prince, like the huntsman. I think that is something that a lot of people like. I think I can't name off the authors because I don't know their names, but I know that there are like a few that have done like it's the huntsman that she falls for instead of the prince, which I think is fascinating. I still am like, you know, I'm a person that's also like, let's not completely diss on the, well, she's not dissing on the prince, but you know, like I think it is like a unique way to tell a story though. So I'll leave it at that. And then fast fact number 3 is about the Wolf Gate. So I didn't really talk about it a lot, but I did kind of hint that I was going to talk about it. So I already gave like a summary for it in part 1, so make sure you watch that. But the Wolf Gate, that one's a different one. I included several different notes that she had from her newsletter about the Wolf Gate. That one's the one that's kind of interesting. So in her words, I'm going to let her explain. So, in one of her newsletters, she had written, this was from earlier this year, it was like, kind of like, what is she going to be doing in 2025? And so, here's what she has to say. She's like, I'm going to do a rewrite of the Wolf Gate. Did anyone ask for this? No, but sadly, I do not control my muse. I'll be expanding the Wolf Gate into a short novel. So it's novella length, but she's going to make it more like novel length, but like short again. A short novel with a more fleshed out backstory and chapters from Gavin's POV. So as of right now, it is from the heroine's POV, Audrey, and there are like no scenes from Gavin's point of view. He's the male love interest. And so she's expanding it to kind of add more his side of the story, which I think is brilliant. As much as I love Audrey and Gavin, I've never been completely satisfied with their story. I think I was trying to write above my skill level. It was my second ever story. That's right, because she wrote The Rose Gate first, which is the Beauty and the Beast retelling, and then she wrote The Wolf Gate, which comes kind of like right before / during The Rose Gate. So anyway, yeah, so she said, and I tried to cram too much into too short of a story, and it has my lowest rating in reviews. So while I know that many of you love it, it's certainly not my strongest work. If you do love it, the good news is that almost nothing is being removed from the story. It's almost all going to be just more sassy Audrey and cheesecake loving Gavin. Oh my gosh. But yeah, so definitely I would say, like, and I'm glad that, like, she was, like, super self-aware of, like, yeah, it's not my strongest work, like, you know, stuff like that. Because that is something that I did notice when I read it. I was like, this almost didn't really fit. And I loved, like, what she tried to do with it. But, yeah, I get where she's going with it. And I'm glad that she's making it a little bit better, different. But, yeah, and also if you're someone, I would actually highly recommend watching my reading video of The Wolf Gate, because I did like a little reading excerpt video. I talk a little bit more in depth about the things that kind of don't really work with it, including some content stuff. And it's not like bad content, because all of her books are no spice, clean, cozy romance, but there is some interesting, questionable content that is kind of in there that I was just like, this does not fit with the rest of the series. And she actually acknowledges that. So let me continue. She does say, however, if you are worried, you might want to buy a copy before I change anything. If you are a KU reader, be warned that I'm going to have to pull it out of KU at the beginning of February because of adding tiers to Patreon. I think it might be out of KU, but it's available on Kindle. So, like, obviously KU is Kindle Unlimited, but you can still buy the Kindle version. It's just, like, obviously KU is, like, a little bit different. I don't know how to explain that. And the paperback appears to still be on Amazon. But I could be wrong. I could be. She said, I'm sure there will be more. I have 2 potential collaborations in discussion. Not co-authored books exactly, you'll see. I'd love to do a hardcover edition for The Wolf Gate. I don't really know what she was really talking about with that last sentence, but she is wanting to do a hardcover edition of The Wolf Gate. And then, you know, because we're still talking about The Wolf Gate, she did get a question in her emails that had to do with The Wolf Gate, so this helps expand on that as well. The question was, you mentioned rewriting The Wolf Gate to make it fit in with your other books in the series. If you do, it will be possible, or would it be possible for you to have it as an alternate version instead of having it merely replace the original? That's interesting. Her answer was, while I plan to keep the heart of The Wolf Gate the same, I'll be adding in and changing enough of it that Amazon will consider it a new edition. I don't plan to keep the old version up for sale, but because it will be a new edition with a new ISBN number, it won't overwrite your old copy. So I'm guessing if somebody bought it on Kindle, like, it won't disappear. Oh, excuse me. Okay, sorry about that. So if you buy it as an ebook before that, and I'll warn you, you'll have both versions. And of course, there's the paperbacks. The KU version of the old book will, I think, she wrote that in parentheses, stay the same as long as it's in your library, but I'm not 100% how it works if a book is removed from sale and it's in KU. So it's a good thing that she's even acknowledging, like, she's not really sure. Yeah. And then she's going to get a little bit into the content part of it. So yeah, just know that it's not like bad, but it's just like, it's just like weird and awkward. So here we go. The last part of Fast Fact number 3, she said, this is like from another part of the newsletter talking about rewriting The Wolf Gate. The Wolf Gate is a tricky book for me because it's just not on brand with the rest of the series. The characters are some of my absolute favorites, but it's not nearly as cozy and whimsical as the other books. I definitely agree on that point. Also, while I completely stand by it being a good book for 12 and up, people keep wanting to buy it for their 9-year-olds, especially the print book due to its size. Understandable. And it's the only one of my books that I feel I have to give a warning for younger readers. And finally, it's the book that I get reviews about saying it feels incomplete, whereas the Lilygate, which is less than half the size, doesn't have that problem. I feel like the Lilygate had a really good cohesive beginning, middle, and end. And then with the Wolfgate, it did have that, but it was just like, it felt like there were scenes missing. So I understand why she's, yeah. She said, so the Wolfgate is getting a makeover. I'm hoping that I can keep all the things you love about it. The banter in that book makes me so happy, but add in some more coziness. Take out some of the talk about the sex they're not having, and a bit more at the end to make it a satisfying story all on its own. Fingers crossed that this won't turn into a big project. I know that down this path can lead to madness, but I really love that little book, and I want it to fit in better with its siblings. And also she wants to write a short story where Audrey and Gavin finally get their proper happily ever after. And she said, I didn't mean to make it so hard on them, but I promise it will be worthwhile. I will say their love story is definitely a bit hard because they're having to go on the run from a bunch of evil people. So they never really settle down. Also, if you're curious, when I read the part about the sex they're not having and you're like, what? Hold on, what? Quick summary. Again, you can go watch my reading video on this, but if you refuse to click off this video, in the Wolfgate, the character of Audrey very much has this standard and value of purity in her life. She does not want to have sex before marriage. And honestly, that was one thing that I loved about her. Even though there was some stuff about her character that I myself personally was just like, not really my favorite character, but I appreciated that value about her. I loved that. I was like, okay, this is in line with my own values. And but I will say it did kind of make for a little bit of an awkward book because it did feel like there was one too many scenes where like there's a flashback to her and Gavin like at the beginning of their relationship. And I just remember like there's a few awkward conversations where she's just like kind of telling him like, yeah, well, I don't want to have like sex before marriage. And like, she kind of like, the whole idea is that she's meant to be like kind of awkward and everything. But yeah, it was just like a little bit kind of like weird and awkward and stuff. And yeah. And then there was like one scene where like, they're kissing and like the kiss was a little too detailed. That's all I'm going to say about it. So anyway, moving on. This is my favorite part of the video, a part of my notes, and I'm really excited about it. Again, all of this stuff is from Hannah's newsletters. So this section is called What's Next for Hannah, and she did this really cool poll in her newsletter where she asked readers like what fairy tales do you want me to retell? So I'm gonna go through this thing, and she gives like rankings of like how many people voted for this fairy tale or that fairy tale. So yeah, if you're wondering like what kind of fairy tales she's gonna do, well, here you go. First off, this is in her own words. First off, as a reminder, because a couple of these were mentioned, I have already retold Beauty and the Beast, Red Riding Hood, the Frog Prince, Cinderella, and I'm working on Snow White. At this time, she was still riding the Frostgate. She said, here's your top picks for me to tackle next, with the amount of votes each one got and the likelihood that your wish will come true. Also, I'm going to go more in depth on the ones that she is going to retell because there was more notes that came out with future newsletters. So just, if you're like, you hear one and you're like, oh, I want to hear more about that, I will definitely be going into detail. Rapunzel won with 17 votes. She says, good news, I am currently planning that one already for my Fairy Crown series, which we're going to talk about that in a bit. You've already had a hint of her in the short story A Fairy Tale Wedding. Any guesses? ... And then next, The Little Mermaid. That one came in second with 13 votes. It is also on my list for the Fairy Crown series. You met Eilish, my little Merrow princess, in The Glass Gate. She makes a little cameo. That's all I'm going to say. And then the next fairy tale, it got 12 votes. It is King Thrushbeard. Also, I had not heard of this. And what's funny is Hannah had not really heard of it either. She said, please help me out here. I don't know what to say. I've never read a retelling of this one, and I honestly don't even know the fairy tale. Did someone write a killer Thrushbeard retelling and make it get so many votes? Please hit reply to this email and tell me what book I should be reading because I am having major FOMO. I did look up the fairy tale, and it's actually really sweet. So go ahead and look that up. The 12 Dancing Princesses, it got 8 votes. She says, I don't have a plan for this one, but I do love it, so I'm not ruling it out. It's a lot of characters to keep track of, though. Oh, definitely. If you watch the Barbie movie, it's a lot of princesses. And then Princess and the Pea, Rumpelstiltskin, Sleeping Beauty, they got 6 votes each. She said, Rumple is coming after Frost. It's Amber's book. You're going to meet Sleeping Beauty in Frost. Yes, there's a cameo of that character in the Frost Gate. She says, I'm not sure how I'd retell Princess and the Pea, but it's a fun one, so you never know. With 5 votes is East of the Sun, West of the Moon. She said, I need to read this one again. I'm not super familiar, but I think someone rides a bear, and you know I love that. Ha ha ha. All I'm going to say about that one is it's basically the same as Beauty and the Beast. It's just there's some different, like, things about it, but it's basically the same. It's more closer to, again, it's basically where this Beauty and the Beast tale comes from, but it's more similar to the tale of Eros and Psyche, so if you want to look that up. The Snow Queen and Wild Swans got 4 votes each. She says, 2 of my 3 personal favorite fairy tales. The third only got 1 vote, so if you voted for Tam Lin, I believe that is an Asian fairy tale. I understand. I love these because the girl saves the guys in the original story. No plans, but Moriath is kind of the Snow Queen, and I'd love to retell these 2 someday. Also, Puss in Boots, Goldilocks, and Donkey Skin got 3 each. If you're not really sure what Donkey Skin is, look it up. It's an interesting fairy tale. She says the first 2, who knows, not on top of my list, but I do love cats. However, I am never retelling Donkey Skin. I read Deer Skin by Robin McKinley as a teen, and it messed me up. Yeah, I never read that book, but I read the summary, and I was like, okay, not sure how I feel about it. I love Beauty by Robin McKinley, but don't think I would ever read Deer Skin. She says, sorry guys, it's a hard pass, even if K.M. Shea kind of sort of retold it and made it work. And then lastly, The Goose Girl, Snow White, and Rose Red. Snow White and Rose Red is a totally different thing than Snow White, by the way. Those each got 2 votes, and she said, who knows, have you guys read Snow and Rose by Emily Winfield Martin? It is a delight and illustrated. I'll need to look that up. See if it's any good. And then she said, honorable mention to the one person who voted for Thumbelina, because I actually have an idea for that one. Ha ha ha. To the person who wants Baba Yaga, that is a Russian fairy tale, by the way. Look at my friend Valya Lind. You might like her Russian-inspired fairy tales. And then down below she said, other things to note, I'm only retelling European fairy tales. I'm super white, guys. That made me laugh. She said, I'm maybe 10%, I think it's pronounced Metis. It's like it's like the native peoples of Canada. That's all you need to know. She says, but I'm still very white. And while I love to include more diversity in my characters, I'm not planning to tell stories of other cultures. So no Mulan, no Aladdin. Do I love the stories from around the world? 100% yes, but those are for other people to tell and me to read and love. She's just kind of keeping it with like the regular fairy tales that we all know from like Grimm's basically. And maybe Hans Christian Andersen. Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan, Robin Hood, and King Arthur will not show up in any of my fairy books. They aren't fairy tales. They are classic kids' books and legends. Also, not retelling Greek myths. I'm not saying I would never retell these stories. I love them. Also, Jane Austen, Oz. But my brain says they can't exist in the same universe as my current books. I get that. I get that. There's some things where it's just like, I don't know how this fits. And then below that, she said, am I planning more novellas? So here we go. We're finally going to get into more about the future of her books, the Fairy Crown series, all the things. She says, yes, I love writing shorter fairy tales. Excuse me. And I honestly regret going straight from one novel to the next this time because there was no novella between Glassgate and Frost, just so you know. She said, because it's fun to break things up with a little with a short book. I have a few fairy tales in the back of my mind that I think would be great as novellas, and my next planned project is a Rumpelstiltskin retelling featuring Amber, our fairy godmother in training, on her first solo mission. I'm planning for this one to be longer than the Wolfgate, but still novella length, and am dying to start writing my howl-coated, dragon-shifting Rumpelstiltskin love interest. If that piques your interest, heck yeah. Also, when she says howl-coated, she's talking about like Howl from Howl's Moving Castle. I have not watched this. I have not read this. I know the story because I did do some research. I may watch the movie if plenty of people comment down below. It seems like an interesting story, but I'm like, I just don't know. But basically, if you're a lover of Howl's Moving Castle, you're most likely going to love Amber's story. So anyway, it is going to be called The Gold Gate because Rumpelstiltskin retelling. She says, I am so excited for this one, so here's everything I know about it so far. This was from quite a few months ago, so she probably has more in mind about it. It's going to be novella length, obviously. It is going to center around Amber's first adventure as like a fairy godmother, because she trains under a certain fairy godmother from the series. Obviously, it's Rumpelstiltskin, a hero with Howl vibes. She just said, if you know, you know. Oh, and there's going to be a pet skunk. I'm excited about that. She said, that's pretty much it, but the conversations they've been having in my head are top-notch banter, let me tell you. And then, so a little bit more on the Sleeping Beauty retelling. She says, all I can tell you is that my Sleeping Beauty makes an appearance in the Frostgate, so keep your eyes open when you read it. Rapunzel is also in there, too. Yeah, there's a little hint at the Rapunzel character. And then, of course, she expands a little bit more on the Little Mermaid retelling. So, yes, she said the Little Mermaid shows up in the Glass Gate. It's Eilish, the Merrow Princess. She said, I haven't, and at the time of writing this, she said, I haven't decided much about the next trilogy yet, but all the female main characters and one of the men are in place for it. Yeah, one of the men is kind of a side character in the series, starting in, I think, the Wolfgate. You kind of meet him a little bit, but he's mostly primarily in the Glass Gate, as well as Frost. She says it will be called the Fairy Crown Trilogy. So we have like the fairy tale romances, which are mostly I call them like the Fairy Gate series because they all have gate in the title. So the next series is going to focus on crowns, and I believe it's going to primarily take place more in fairy. So the working titles are The Coral Crown, which is a retelling of Little Mermaid, The Briar Crown, which is a retelling of Sleeping Beauty, and The Mist Crown, which is a retelling of Rapunzel. Side note, she says, my children think Rapunzel should be called the Radish Crown, but I am unconvinced because Rapunzel essentially means radish or like a type of green vegetable lettuce or something. I don't know. It's funny. She says that will wrap up the Fairy Gates trilogy series arcs, essentially. And for 2025, I'm planning to shift over to my first book in a new original series set in the same world. I'll give you more info on that as I get closer to it, but I'm very excited. And don't worry, I haven't forgotten about Maeve, Declan, Eilish, and the mysterious Dream Girl. That's all the hints you guys are getting. You're gonna have to read the books to know who these people are. But yeah, she said more fairy tales are coming in the future. So yeah, and she is planning on writing a whole other series. That's like, I think she actually answers it down below, but yeah, she's going to write a whole other series that takes place in fairy, but it's more like, I think she said it was going to be like small town vibes essentially. So yeah. So anyway, now we are finally in the section of this video called Questions for Hannah. So I will get to the questions from the viewers and my friends and everything, but first there was a variety of questions that I found in her newsletter, and I thought it was really cool, and I actually figured that a lot of these would be interesting for you guys to hear, so like if there's anybody who had any questions, maybe or like if you're thinking of a different question, maybe it's answered here. So somebody had asked her in her newsletter, are you a planner, a pantser, or a plantser? So this is like a writing term. So a planner is someone who like meticulously like plans out like their story before they get into writing it. A pantser is like basically writing off the seat of your pants, essentially. Or a plantser is like a mix of both. So now you know. She said, I am a plancer. Haha. What this means for you non-writers is that I sort of plan out my books in advance. Some authors have detailed plots worked out before they start writing, and some just sit down with no plan and write. I am somewhere in between. If I write a detailed plot, I go off the rails and have to constantly replot. But if I don't make a plan at all, I can't get started. So I tend to know the setup, some of the climax, and the ending before I start. I get to know the characters, usually by drawing them, and I plan out the first quarter or so of the book before I start. Then I plot a section ahead as I go. This seems to allow my creative intuition breathing room without making me feel lost and overwhelmed. All authors have different processes for this, which I find so interesting. Next question was, my question to authors is always, do you collect anything? Her answer, other than books, ha ha ha. I have a small house, so I try to keep things minimal, but I do have a nice little collection of vintage Pyrex and old teacups, a lot of houseplants, and unfortunately I sew slower than I buy fabric, so let's call that a collection too. And then somebody asked a question that is specific to the Glassgate. In order to not spoil anything, all I'm going to say is that at the end, there's an epilogue that has a 5-year jump. And this person wanted to know, is the 5-year jump human years or fairy years? Because just so you know, time runs differently in fairy than it does in the human world, kind of like Narnia. And her answer to that is that it's in fairy years. So if somebody who is starting to read the books or has read them, you'll know what I'm talking about. Oh, and then this was interesting. This was really fun. So do your illustrations play a part in your writing? Absolutely, in more ways than one. When I'm deciding what my characters should look like, I do think about what would be fun to draw and how to make sure they all stay visually distinct from one another so that you can easily tell who's who in my art. Then when I start to draw them, usually first as a chibi, that's like a cute style of art, I might tweak things based on what looks best. I came up with a design for the unseelie crown because I really, really wanted to draw girls with antlers and because I thought it would be funny, equally important. I also design most of the fancier dresses my heroines wear in illustrations first and then write them into the books. It's very important. I even change things in my final draft if it doesn't match with what I decided looks better in an illustration. On the other hand, I'm about to tweak the cover of the Frostgate because I gave Nev a cool looking sword thinking that she needed a magic blade, but that didn't make it into the story, so I need to change the design to match what I wrote. And then question was, will you make more heroines of color for your fairy tale romances? So what they mean by that is that, like, for example, in the Lilygate, Twala, Princess Twala, she is half fairy and also half human, and her father is, I believe he's a black man from Paris. And so she's like, so she's mixed. So her skin tone is like a little bit lighter, but she's still kind of got, a little bit of the skin tone from her father. So she said, yes, you met Sleeping Beauty in Frost, and I described her as having brown skin and long, shining black hair. I have not yet decided where in the fairy realm her family would have come from, but I am open to suggestions. So yeah, she's definitely planning on having that. And also the character of Killian, the huntsman in Frostgate, has dark skin. And it's mentioned, well, I'm not going to spoil it, but he does have a sister who looks very similar to him with like the hair and everything. Someone said, I honestly think you could really do a good Thumbelina retelling as well if you wanted to. And her answer was, this is more of a statement than a question, but I really do want to write a Thumbelina retelling in the future, probably novella length, maybe with a brave pixie prince who you may have already met. Frostgate, spoilies. And then somebody had asked about a character from the Frostgate, and I'm gonna skip that one for now because I had my friend Alyssa, she actually asked a question very similar. So this character's named Estrid. She is the niece of the dwarf kings in the dwarf kingdom, and it's because her uncles are like two brothers. I don't know if they're twins, but it's like two brothers that rule over the dwarves. and Estrid is their niece, and like she really wants to be able to make a difference. And like, so this person had asked, like, is she in the running for Dwarf Queen? And I will answer that later. So anyway, next question was more of a statement, but someone said, never get different covers. The current ones are amazing. And Hannah's answer was, thank you. I love my covers, and it took me 3 tries to get them right, so I have no plans to change them. I do want to try something new eventually for a series omnibus. That means like a big book that contains all the books basically in it. So that won't affect the individual book covers. Yes. She said, I've also gotten some more great questions from new subscribers. So if you ever, oh wait, never mind. That was a statement that I meant to delete. That was just an after aside. Okay, next question was, are you a discovery writer, a plotter, or somewhere in between? Did you practice with short stories before you finished a book? And what are your writing inspirations? Do you have a favorite writing guidebook or system? Hannah said, somewhere in between. I have a rough idea and then plot out a few chapters ahead at a time. I didn't start with short stories. The Rose Gate was actually my first finished project. I do enjoy writing novelette/novella length stories though. My inspirations are so many things. Ha ha ha. It would take a long time to list them all, and I don't know if I could. But as far as books, I found the Save the Cat Writes a Novel. That's like a writing book that's like, it's supposed to help you with writing. And I've actually heard of this before. And Romancing the Beat to both be very helpful. My friend Tessonia Odette and I have laughed about how we combine the 2 methods, and therefore our system is Romancing the Cat. So I'm guessing they took 2 of the systems from both of those books and they mashed them into that. Next question was confession. I read The Wolf Gate sometime last week and have since plowed through the entire series. Please tell me Amber and Lily will get a story at some point, and that you are going to bring back the red-headed mermaid character. Also, she's actually not red-headed, but she explains that. So Amber and Lily, just so you guys know, are the 2 sisters of Isabel in The Rose Gate, aka she's the Belle character. Amber is the youngest sister, Lily is the oldest. Excuse me. And we've just talked about Amber, but I'm gonna read Hannah's answer anyway. She said, after reworking Wolf, I'm planning to write Amber's story, The Gold Gate, a retelling of Rumpelstiltskin. Then I have a secret 4.5 book project, aka 1 novella, 4 novels in the same world, but original stories. She said after that, or possibly alternating, so like maybe she'll write a story from this new series and then she'll write this other series. She said, I'm going to do the Fairy Crown series, which is obviously new fairy tales set in the same world. We'll get Eilish, Declan, Maeve, and that mysterious girl from Nev's dream. I'm planning The Little Mermaid, Rapunzel, and Sleeping Beauty. Also, Lily, she's the oldest sister, again, is not getting her own story. She is happily engaged to a nice human doctor. Oh yes, I don't think we get to meet him, but he sounds really sweet. We get to hear about him. Next question. I hope you're a fast writer. I need more stories. Hannah said, I have some bad news for you, darlin'. She wrote darlin'. She's not from Texas. She's Canadian, but I love the darlin'. I'm sadly not a fast writer. Haha. I dearly wish I could say otherwise, but the evidence is clear. My Patreon is the best way to get regular news stories as they come out, if you like reading news stories a chapter a week. Yeah, that's what she does. So I think like if you get like one of the higher paying tiers, you can get a chapter a week. I'm on one of the lower tiers, but if you want to get a higher Patreon thing, you can. As an aspiring writer, a reader who loves to know more about the authors I read, I'd like to know why you write. Why fantasy? Why retellings? Why clean stories? Is there something deeper in it's for you? I don't know why that question is phrased like that. What is there something deeper in it for you? I think that's what it's saying. I'd love to hear more about your writing journey now and before this point. Hannah said, so many questions here. I write stories I want to read, honestly. I love romance and fantasy, although I do read a lot of contemporary rom-coms as well. I also love to share my books with my daughters. The older 2 for now are at 12 and 14. I think that they're a little bit older now. And I make sure that I write books that are appropriate for them to read. I'm also someone who struggles with my mental health, so I write stories that are fun and a fun and cozy place for me to spend my mental time. Honestly, same. And then the last question from her newsletters before we get on to the viewers. Someone asked, just a personal question. Are you a follower of Jesus? Your stories really seem like you are, but I haven't found anything of you saying it outright. I am, and I love finding other authors who are believers. It's so special. If not, that's okay. I just wondered. Which I already kind of said this earlier, that she is a Christian, but I'll let her say in her own words. She said, I am, yes. I don't talk about it a ton online as I write my books for people of all different backgrounds to enjoy, but yes. Yeah, she writes it like, like according to like her own standards, but and even though she has mentioned God in a couple of her books, she doesn't want to like shove it down your throat basically. But like, like the character of Isabel in The Rose Gate, that's the one that has the most mentions of God in it. But I love that like she still keeps them to like her standards, but she's not gonna like, so again, I do feel like these books are people of all backgrounds and beliefs can enjoy, but it's like doing it in love as well, where it's like not condemning, or you know what I mean. And finally, guys, from the viewers, I know you've been waiting for this for a while to get your questions answered, and I'm finally delivering. Here we go. From the viewers. This one is from, this is a question from me. So I asked, how did you decide which fairy tales you wanted to retell? Like, did the fairy tale you wanted to use inform the story for your original characters? Or did the characters sometimes inform which retelling you did? In parentheses, I said, I hope this makes sense. Hannah's answer was, I decided the fairy tales in advance, and for the novels, I'm afraid the answer is a bit mercenary. Haha. I chose the fairy tales that are most loved and recognized because I wanted to find readers more easily for my books. I know that it can be hard as a brand new author to get people excited about an unknown book, but Beauty and the Beast will always have readers who are excited for another version. I also do love all the stories, of course. I've always adored fairy tales, and I really enjoy writing them in my own way. The Wolfgate and the Lilygate novellas were just for fun because I had a good idea. The characters grow out of the fairy tale. Tiernan, for example, was fun to write because I wanted to play with the idea of Prince Charming. Why is he so charming? Is it real or fake? Does it get annoying? Is he hiding trauma underneath? And in parentheses, she said, I love a sad boy. Ha ha ha. And then the next two questions that I sent her were from my friend Alyssa. Hi. I said, yeah, these next questions are from my friend Alyssa, who I introduced to the series. And her question was, can all humans sense magic? Like it's gold magic, and like there's also like a humming feeling that you hear or feel. Or just the ones who are destined to be connected to fairy. Hannah's answer was this. All humans can sense magic the same way anyone who lives in fairy can. The magical energy in fairy is their power source, just like electricity is ours, and the awareness of it has more to do with the magic than the person, if that makes sense. However, having the sight and being able to use the magic in a more delicate, powerful, or intentional way is rare. Sometimes it's genetic and sometimes it's just random. It's more rare for humans to have the sight than fairies, but it does happen. So hopefully, Alyssa, that makes sense. And the next question, which this has to do with Estrid, she's the, I don't know if she's necessarily a princess, but her uncles, who are two brothers, are the leaders of the Dwarven kingdom in the Frostgate. So Alyssa's question was, is Estrid from the Frostgate ever going to get the chance to lead and or make what she considers a meaningful contribution to society? And Hannah wrote, Frostgate spoilers. So if you haven't read the book, just be warned, skip ahead the next 30 seconds maybe. When Estrid designed the teleportation rune that is tattooed on Nev for the final battle in the Frostgate, that was a huge discovery for the dwarves and brought rune crafting into the spotlight more than it had been. She's definitely in the running to be a future ruler now, but the kings will probably be around for a while yet, and who knows who else might be considered. I'm not being coy, I legit just don't know. That is how it is sometimes with authors. And then the next question is from both Alyssa and I after we watched Narnia. We literally had like a movie night with our church young adults, and we were watching Chronicles of Narnia, and we both were like, is the Unseelie Queen, who's like the main villain of the fairy tale romance series, Moriath, is she based on the White Witch? Because like she has like this army of wolves. She also has like this ice castle. And we were like, interesting. And so this was Hannah's answer. And I also have a little aside to add to it, but I'll add it after I read her answer. So her answer was, no, but I can see the similar vibes. Moriath is based on the Snow Queen by Hans Christian Andersen, one of my very favorite fairy tales. When she kisses Leith on the forehead, she enchants him to love her, like the Snow Queen does with Kai, but his sister breaks the spell with the warmth of her love. The wolves are a nod to the wolves in Disney's Beauty and the Beast. She is also, of course, the enchantress from Beauty and the Beast and the evil stepmother from Snow White, but her vibes are from the Snow Queen. Also, I would just like to add a little aside. I don't know if this is something that Hannah knows, or maybe she just wasn't thinking of this when she wrote the answer, but the Snow Queen actually was the inspiration for the White Witch, because C.S. Lewis was very much a lover of all things fairy tales and myths and legends, and it is on the record of him, like, actually taking inspiration from the fairy tale The Snow Queen for the White Witch. Like, the whole scene where Edmund meets the White Witch and, like, eats the Turkish delight, taken directly from that fairy tale, even though the Snow Queen didn't feed Kai Turkish delight, but you know what I mean. And then finally, last but not least, my viewer, Jamie. You were the one viewer who sent me a question, but yeah, I'm so excited that at least one person from my channel asked a question. And so this is for you. I said, or this was my question, or this is the question that I sent her, and I said, last but not least, this one is from one of my viewers, Jamie. What inspired you to write this series? Hannah's answer was, I got the idea to write a series of retellings after listening to a podcast interview with K.M. Shea. That's an author. I was really struggling to finish my first manuscript. I never did. Poor mermaid story. Not gonna... I think I've heard about this mermaid story, but it's funny. She said, and I realized that retelling a fairy tale would help me with the structure of the story, as my plot kept going off the rails, as well as give me a better chance at reaching an audience. I was sort of floored that I had never thought of it before, because I love fairy tales so much. I was also really inspired by Holly Black and her Elfheim books, because I love how she uses the old fairy lore as the basis for her world, as opposed to just magic, hot fae men, which seems to be really common in fae books. Looking at you, Avatar. Looking at you. That's all I'm going to say about that. Anyway, however, she writes pretty dark and angsty, and I knew I never could. I keep things light for the sake of my mental health, and because I want to bring something that's joyful into the world. So it's a combination of classic fairy tales, Disney, Celtic lore, and just all the cute and cozy things I love mixed up into one series. Haha. Oh, and sometimes it's things I like to draw, like an antler crown. Thanks for all your questions. These were really great. Aw, so thank you so much, Hannah, if you're watching this, for answering these questions. That just made me so happy that I was able to, like, actually, like, get in touch with the author and, like, you know, yeah, that just, again, I'm just, like, so grateful to you for that, Hannah. Thank you. Again, she is so amazing, guys. Like, seriously, go and follow her. She's, like, such a very, very amazing person. So, yeah, and then just kind of, like, to wrap up at the end of all of this, I know that this video has gotten super long. I have some, like, a couple of other notes, but I honestly don't really think that it's really needed. Because I think, like, when I was writing my notes and stuff, I realized that I was just adding so much detail, and I was just like, I don't really need to add all this. I really don't. So anyway, I think that's where I'm going to sign off here. That's all the things. So just as a reminder, go and watch part 1, obviously, if you haven't already, and you just stubbornly was like, I'm going to continue to watch part 2. Also watch the swag video, aka part 1.5 of this video series. And also go and watch my reading excerpt videos of her books as well. I'm going to add, like, the links to kind of all of those videos pretty much, or like the playlist that they're in. And go and watch the Animatic of the Glassgate, and go and follow Hannah on Instagram, go to her website, her Patreon. She also has a free tier on Patreon, so if you don't want to have to pay, but you can, like, be a part of her community, But I will say, like, even if you're on like the $1 or $5 tier, it's definitely worth it, because you get more perks. But yeah, just thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for those who sent in questions. Again, Jamie and Alyssa, love you guys. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I love y'all so much. God bless and all the things. So I'll see you in the next one. Bye.